Yeah, so I wake up this morning and I see a message, and it's Access Rattblood. Are you here, Rattblood?
Access Rattblood. Access Rattblood. Access Rattblood. Access Rattblood.
And then you got people like Access, and then you got people like Access, and then you got people like Access.
I'm Access fucking Rattblood.
Axis rat blood, I see. All these Axis people, I'm starting to get paranoid about that now. I don't know what to do about
And then you got people like Access, and then you got people like Access, and then you got people like Access.
Are you here, Rattblood?
I'm Access fucking Rattblood.
Access Rattblood.
Most abundant and successful king hero that we are all sitting with at this very moment. Are you willing to accept that as a truth? That you are a worthy man and that your penis is okay?
all these Axis people, I'm starting to get paranoid about that now. All these Axis people, I'm starting to get paranoid about that now.
Are you here, Rattblood? I'll just start throwing spells at you, conjuring demons and otherwise. Are you here, Rattblood? I'll just start throwing spells at you, conjuring demons and otherwise. Are you here, Rattblood? I'll just start throwing spells at you, conjuring demons and otherwise. Are you here, Rattblood?
Who the fuck is Access Rattblood?
I'm Access fucking Rattblood, bitch.
All these Axis people, I'm starting to get paranoid about that now. I don't know what to do about it.
I'm Access fucking Rattblood.
Hey, anyone hear me? Huh? My headphones working. Interesting.
Hello?
Hold on.
Uh, you sure you can't hear?
Hey, I don't know why my headphones weren't working. That's weird.
Fools
It's
and
not
tools.
cool.
Much love. Much love
How you
in the
doing,
chat.
Axis?
Oh, hanging in there, Charles.
That's good.
Hanging in there, watching the development of I don't know the YouTube wasteland.
Yeah, this world's
What?
turned into a mental wasteland.
Well, I'm watching, a lot of inconsistencies anymore. Where there was consistencies, a lot of channels aren't really going live, and then some of the channels that are consistently going live, it's all about the buck, man. You know, um, and that's good on them. If that's your delivery and that's what you've got to offer is trying to make a living off of YouTube or whatever your intent is. That's cool, but that's just not. I don't know, man. I feel like you're buying entertainment at that point.
Yeah, there's really no money in YouTube for people that do that for a living. And if they get the money, more power to them, man. I'm happy for them. But
Yeah. Well, I remember when there was a message, and that message was pretty clear. You're being lied to. Things aren't what they seem, and well, even wake up took a whole different fucking
yeah,
took on
now
a
it's
different
woke.
meaning. Yeah, and
The
so
government took it and twisted it and used it for an agenda.
and I figured people would be a little more tactful in their approach, maybe utilizing their words different or even their energy different. But it seems that that's the measure of them. They cut off at that point, and then they start trying to. I don't know. It's almost like they stop thinking and they just start becoming like.
Glad you brought that up because I was thinking that exact same stuff this morning. Of people people think there's something in the water. I personally think it's mass hypnosis. They have found ways to hypnotize people in large amounts because Kamala, I'm going to use that for an example, her speech, telling people she's going to bring the food prices down when she's the
Yeah.
cause of them going up, and people are cheering for her. And either they might be paid to sit there and do that, but if they're not, we're in some trouble, man, because people don't realize it was her and her buddy there that brought all the food prices up, and they're cheering for her to bring them down. I'm like, we're screwed, man. As a collective of people, we're in danger here. If this is
Let
the
me give you
mentality,
let me give you a little relative history, Charles, to what's going on here. Let's take it back to when the development of Roman Catholicism first came into existence as the Church of Rome under Constantine II. Now, during the development of this, not only did they lay out the guidelines for a state religion, but there was another organization that wound up forming underneath of them that uh, basically worked with the Catholic Church hand in hand, and they were cohorts
was it
until
Antinius cult?
No, it was the Masons. It was it was the Knights Templar first. They were the Knights Templar. They worked with the Church of Rome. They escorted pilgrimages to the Holy Land. They were extremely wealthy, and that's part of what brought them down with the Catholic Church was the fact that they were becoming so powerful and wealthy. Now, whenever they disbanded the Knights Templar because they were actually a threat to Roman Catholicism at the time, um, you wound up going through the whole Friday the 13th and the burning at the stake of Jacques de Molay, and you started a second fraction, which come out of the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church. So the Knights Templar turned into the Freemasons, and you can't be a Freemason and a Catholic. And if they find out that you're a Catholic and you're a Freemason, you're excommunicated from the Catholic Church. As this carried over and became a part of the movement, we'll call it the world movement, because anytime you can sit in a confessional, tell a priest in the middle of BFE your confession, and that confession through a chain of communication can get straight to the Pope, that's pretty powerful. They can find out anything on anybody who belongs to the Catholic Church that uses a confessional or confides in anyone in the Catholic Church, bishops, any of the diocese, all the way up to, the Vatican. They can find out that type of information. Well, the Masons have the same type of procedure. They keep tabs on everybody that is in the Masonic order, and you have those two factions trying to sway world. We'll just call it the Hegelian dialectic. But the fact is there are two different orders that are working not for the people and against each other. So that puts you in a position where even those that are in cohorts with each other, kind of like the red and blue dude, different wings of the same bird. There's always this struggle for control of something that they feel is necessary, and we're the lesser class. We'll say they don't understand the genetics of it yet. Now, I'll teach you here the genetics of it if you wish, but they leave, which is part of what I think the whole DNA and the jab thing was about. But I'll get to that in a minute. But anyhow, when you've got all these factions working for such a temporary stay of existence on this plane of existence, you got to wonder what is the overall arching long-term goal. Miniature dirt wars, creating scenarios for what your temporary comfort while you're here on this plane of existence for a short period of time doesn't seem feasible to me. But if you were able to transcend generations and you did have factions behind you, such as the Roman Catholic Church or the Masons, then you might be working for something a little more long term. And the level of communication that's going on worldwide, even prior to modern technology, was still almost improbable, if you can catch what I'm saying. And as we've developed, and our class, which is the useless eater or useless breather or the less than middle class. Even the middle class is not a substantial force to be reckoned with anymore. They're doing their thing over top of their heads too. But what people fail to realize is in the factions of these two different groups, you have our state and condition, which is now, because of state of emergency declaration, why you're getting the shit show that you're getting in politics and how that's all being conducted. Whenever they declare a national emergency, which they did at the old twin buildings, and they did whenever the C-19 come around, and they're getting ready to implicate another one. The federal government, FEMA and SEMA, step in and take over political control. The general government that we recognize and the branches of government that we're generally used to dealing with cease to retain power, and it goes directly to FEMA, SEMA, and as a part of that, Homeland Security. Were you aware of that?
Oh yeah, yes, definitely aware of that.
So all these people that are complaining about the left or the right, the red or the blue, or this or the that, there's a reason that they're putting on this big facade, this show, and anybody that buys into it is not thinking in the first place, has no critical thought. But the fact is they're under federal government control right now, and pretty much have been since the old two buildings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that I'm starting to think. I remember seeing a video. I was gonna talk about this in the live stream today, but it was in the East, where I don't know if it was military or whoever these people were. They're training them to turn the U.S. into the police state. They made a mock city in the desert, and I wonder the war. They've been cool with Iraq, so who knows what's going on behind the scenes. Could have been a cover up for them to train in the desert to militarize. Like, I'm starting to see everything they were training for in that video is coming to light. With these police are becoming the military, man, and a lot of the military are becoming police, which is, and they're using the same tactics they allegedly used when they occupied Iran or all these countries over there. I wonder, the Patriot Act, that gave them the okay to just basically do whatever they want, put cameras up anywhere, and people say there's no privacy in public. I get it, but I still don't want cameras in every fucking corner. I can't walk down the street. Like everyone's a criminal. You get it? Like, it's crazy. Like, you have to be watched at every second. Their famous line the cops love to say is, "How do I know you weren't going to do nothing?" Like,
yeah,
you could.
Preventative measures.
Assumption is the new crime.
Yeah, pre-crime, preventative measures, act before the action. But it's still it's control no matter which way
Right.
way you and the people don't realize is they submitted into that by not resisting it. I mean, anytime that the people could have united into a political voice to stop certain legislation or to stop
Right.
certain laws to being passed, They didn't. So how is it that the Catholic Church can organize? I'm talking the Roman Catholic Church to the point where they become a world power behind the scenes. Non-governmental world power. The Masonic order becomes a non-governmental world power. And that's self-evident. You can look into the history of that. And then you have the actual um, government, which I don't know which countries declared, whether the whole every nation declared some type of disastrous emergency situation that allowed a sub government organization to come in and govern under almost a military rule. But I'm thinking that damn near probably the majority of them did. And they handed everything over to a more, well, you know how FEMA is. I mean, those motherfuckers, they were in Katrina. I've had to watch the effects of the town that I had a little lake cottage in, and it got flooded. FEMA come in, and man, those motherfuckers, their word is law, man. And if they want something, they'll take it. That's what I learned about them real quick. And
What do we
they
do?
say, well, that's just it.
What do we do, man? We're like screwed from every angle. How do we get out of this one?
I say by non-consent. That's how I get around, and that's how I approach each day with a non-consent, non-compliant state of mind. I'm living this life for me, man. I'm the one trapped inside of this body, and I'm not going to share it with any type of government or religion or this is my individual journey. And as things approach me that require me to react upon, that has to do with the government or local, politics or even law enforcement, I do not comply and I do not consent to the level of almost becoming a dissident or a civil disobedient, but not to the point where they can remove me from the game. And then behind the scenes, I'm always speaking my mind, man. But anymore, one of my main stays was YouTube, man. I used to enjoy getting on here, and those that could understand or those that cared to hear, listen, or try to interpret what I was saying, that it was for them. It was for those that could hear and those that would listen. That wake up, smell the coffee, live for yourself, and all possibility. Nobody even listens anymore. Nobody's hearing, and you're right. It could be some type of military frequency or some type of developed independent contracting frequency that they're utilizing for the government. I don't know. I just know that people seem to become each year more and more compliant and almost almost like a rat in a maze type of behavior.
Mass hypnosis for sure. I'm on the bus, so I will be muted. I'm listening though, actually. So,
But anyhow, as I've looked through here recently, um, localized history and that which seems to be relevant to our stay as a society today start to dissipate, crumble, and the foundation of it almost seems to be being removed, especially on a social level. you can see that there is engineering behind this. You can see that there is an agenda. And the clown show that we're being given, that has to be for the easily persuaded and manipulated. That's all I can say, is because anybody that even remotely buying into any of this would do better to go watch a cinematic movie, maybe a little less entertaining, but probably a little more real and factual than what you're seeing and what the media's given you and what's being displayed across the old metaverse. But I am watching people fall away. Independent little channels that I used to go to and enjoy hearing. People that I thought were the next voice or maybe the next mainstay for some type of message on these platforms is kind of going away, and even the interest in these types of messages that these channels had to offer. I'm watching the interest go away too, and I'm seeing them sway more towards just idle conversation, um, not meaningless, but without a virtuous um, foundation endeavors of just the mundane. Fools and tools. Bless you, man. Bless your heart. You've been going for days. I've been watching you, fools and tools, and your energy level shows. You've been roaming channel to channel. You're awesome. She's cool, man. I got to see her on panel once, and she's definitely one of my favorites. If you can have favorites anymore, but I do. There's just people I absolutely disdain on these platforms, and then there's people that just absolutely make my day to see their comments or even have them in the chat. Those are the ones that I suppose that makes this all worthwhile, But anyhow, I've been stepped back from the social media and from engaging too much on the social media platforms, and just watching desperation and decline. And as I see this, and I'm watching them push out more of this fear agenda that everybody was so concerned about, and that the prepper channels made incredible amounts of money on, especially around 2012. They're back at it, and I'm seeing the same repetitive thing over and over, and I'm not seeing shit for forward movement and thinking. So any hope that I have of a unified voice of the people, I don't. I'm just not. I'm not seeing anything productive coming from that, because they've already swept in and decided for you to take a side. And those of us that have chosen not to take a side are so far and few between that the only way that this is really going to, we're going to make any type of impact is if this becomes a homeland kinetic situation. Then it's just over. Then it's just survival of the fittest or the fastest. But as far as survival of the smartest and the more critical of thought, we're so far and few in number now, and as my observation grows over Rumble uh, you know, X, um, YouTube. It's almost like watching the death of a society. It's probably a lot what it felt like during the last of the Roman stand before they changed over into the church completely. And that's where I believe that they hid their body of government. I believe it was hidden in the church. But that's, you know, just speculation. It's awful strange that they have their own city, though. But here recently, I've been looking at all the potential factors that come into play, and these are people with world agendas and whose team they work for, why they work for them, and how they all correspond to each other. And there is a common thread, and I think, like I was telling Charles, I think it's genetic. And I have a complete system that I broke down of genetic lines from the last cataclysm and even before the last cataclysm of various genetics, defined races, uh, you know, genetic manipulation. And I think in the very fundamentals of what they're doing is trying to either find, weed out, or sustain a certain type of genetics. I believe that these genetics are of one or two different traits. One, if you follow any of the Enoch, the Book of Enoch, or the Watchers, or the Book of Og, or any type of even in the Torah, it speaks of various genetic intrusions all the way back to the garden. And this is just a Christian aspect, and I'm using it as a point of reference and not a belief system. Don't buy into any particular belief system. I don't think that it's not applicable here. But using them as an identifiable marker for even the sake of parity, we had all these genetic interruptions, and even if you're a part of the alien fringe and you believe that was the intervention, and you think that possibly our brothers from the stars came and intervened with our genetics, so be it. You know, that's your belief. Fact is that there are identifiable and traceable, whether you do it through pure genetic research, or you do it through history and bloodlines, or whether you have some ideal that maybe the aliens came and manipulated. They're searching, and I believe that fundamentally they are looking to remove genetic lines that are basically what they consider to be the useless eater. But even amongst the useless eaters, you're going to have certain individuals that retain the genetic traces and markers that they're looking to preserve from one side or the other. And I think that has a lot to do with the initiative that they're taking and the way that they're taking it. You know, almost like getting a particular breed or a particular stock of cattle to be the dominant stock of cattle in your pasture and removing the removing the rest of the cattle. Interesting. But anyhow, yeah, they're removing a unwanted or a undesirable genetic line for the sake of one that they find to be more prevalent. And if you do a little research, you'll find that since they've gotten into, the old graphene and some of the other technologies that they've, kind of stuck us with, and some of the research that they're doing, and even in technology and the way that it's moving and advancing, if you think that they're going to allow everybody to, or just anybody to have that transhuman experience, you're mistaken. You're probably not a part of that club, and you won't get a ticket. So for them to continue forward with technology that I can only speculate that they may have, I can't prove it, but I can speculate on it, to the point of it seems plausible that there is a potential for them to maintain a presence in this plane of existence for a prolonged period of time with sustainability in a transhuman state, with automated workers and assistants and, boot polishers. And the ones that don't carry a certain genetic marker in them are the obsolete. Because I don't find it to be a coincidence at all that they did the big genetic roundup with your heritages, and everything resorted to collecting your DNA, your bioinformation, your blood, your metadata. It's like they were harvesting all the information, biological and cerebral, from the entire planet at one time, within a short span of time. And when you think about what technologies they have at the forefront of what they're doing with the gathering and harvesting of genetics and metadata and information, they pretty much got the job done. We're just now living in the fall away, or the final chapters of this particular story. And I don't think it's about what do we do, because I think it's already been done. It's about self-development. It's about the individual. If you're gonna set and concern yourself with, what they're doing, what they're going to do, or what's being done, you'll find that if you turn the media off and you quit subjecting yourself to any mass influence, and you just stay aware and not involved, you'll find that they really don't have their hands as deep in your life as they could at this point. And like Charles was saying, yes, the surveillance is a real bitch, and I don't appreciate it at all. I feel that it's intrusive. I feel that it takes away a lot of our liberties, freedoms, and rights. Um, and I feel that it violates codes of ethics that I stand strong to. But the fact is, it's there, and I can choose to, have electronics and technology of surveillance nature in my home, or I can choose not to. And when I'm out on the street, well, that's public, and I suppose that's no different than, people staring at you while you're out in public. And if you're intended to do something so profound as to make a stand, um, cameras are just another means of control for them to keep you docile and subdued. So those things are best left for people who have the intelligence not to go out and start showing their hand or their capabilities or their full extent. Some things are best left very quiet, very personal, and very unsaid, so that way nobody knows the extent of what you're capable of. It's not a pissing contest. And if you are one of the ones that step out to flex muscle, then you're probably going to be one of the first ones to take the damage, whether that's kinetic, cerebral, or even incarceration. So there's to the muscle flexing badasses of the world. But those who truly think and those who truly experience life have, for me at least, I have a completely different perspective, and it's non-consent, non-compliance, and minimal compliance to the point of, being a dissident, and but not enough where they can take me off. Are you back with us, Charles?
I've been listening the whole time.
Good deal.
But I agree with about what you're saying.
You're breaking up on us, Charles.
Alright, I'm almost off the bus.
Good deal. Good deal.
I'm almost off the bus. Give me like 3 minutes.
Yeah, I can hear you great there. What'd you do?
I put the microphone from my headphones up to my mouth. I took it out of my ear.
Well, there you go. I can hear you just fine now, better than most usual. So, when you think about it, Charles, and you take a introspective and retrospective look at how much they've actually intruded in your physical life, have they really, or have they reserved a lot of what they can do and what they could be doing? Because from my observation with technology and the state of control that they could implicate, it would seem they've been fairly lenient as far as individually coming in and stepping on our necks as hard as they could. But through other ways, I do agree they have went above and beyond the call of anything necessary to cull the races and the cattle.
They're it seems every 4 years they really, so to say, put their foot on our neck. But it's going to become the norm. They like to slowly bring it in until it becomes normalized. People become desensitized.
Do you have kids, Charles? Do you have kids at all?
No, I don't.
Let me ask
All
you.
my friends, so I'm definitely an uncle.
Well, that's okay. That's almost as good, man. You know, can't deny that. Do you think that maybe they've already got a foothold into social engineering the last few generations through the education system and media manipulation? That not only do they see us as obsolete, but they already have grasp of those generations to fulfill what they've already set into motion. And no matter how much we would like to continue with what we consider to be a productive life or a fruitful life, has already been subsided by the last few generations that they've programmed, educated, or engineered, and they don't necessarily want the change. Because I've asked a few people um, of the younger generation, and they're not as dismayed as we are, man. They almost seem to be um, they're not necessarily compliant, but they're not resistant like we are. And I'm wondering if we're more resistant to change or whether it's tyranny. Because the younger generations don't see it as tyranny.
Maybe because they're blind to it and they just don't see it. They don't know about it. But I think they've pretty much got people in control. I mean, they got control of everything, the food, you know. I don't know. I see a big difference from when I was in my teenage years to now in society. It seems like people are just definitely not all mentally there.
Oh, I agree. I agree. For our generation back, we definitely see lines crossed. We definitely see an infringement on our way of life. But as I'm speaking to a younger generation and getting feedback from them, I'm catching on that they never experience what we experience, so they're not going to miss what we experience. And they really don't even understand what our complaint and our bitch is about. And when I try and explain it to them, they almost take a defensive stance for the state of things now. And it's almost like they detach from even wanting to recognize, hear, or understand an older or a more uh, generationally lived way of life. I talked to them about, how the freedoms we had, and I talked to them about the life experiences that we were able to experience that they'll never be able to be a part of, and because they never had it, they don't miss it, and they generally like, so look what we got, and they start talking technology, communication, they start talking, rights and freedoms, and I'm like, your ideal of rights and freedoms are, to my notion, skewed. Um, I have a different perspective, and I try to explain my point of view, but man, I think they've done dug in. I really do, and that's not a giving up, and that's not me throwing it to the side like I've watched most people. It's just me observing as to how I can approach this new generation in a larger scale and get them to comprehend in some form or manner the type of tyranny that we're seeing.
Yeah, the school system did a good job with that. And now I get what you're saying. Yeah, because they didn't live in the times we did. They're just used to being oppressed or suppressed, or they haven't seen the types of freedoms we've seen. So we see the change, but they were born into a time, the school system did a great job into indoctrinating the mind of the youth.
Yeah, and the thing is that's that's two, almost three generations that they've been engineering since. Well, how many since the fall of the buildings? So, however many generations from the fall of the buildings until present day is the generational in school years that would have been indoctrinated with the new agenda. So they would have no concept or clue, and to them it's the norm. To them, this is all normal, just like the 70s were normal to us, or the 80s were normal to us. Well, to them, this is all normal, and especially since there was a mass trauma experience with a pandemic, they were basically lobotomized. And when they went inside and basically delivered themselves over to technology at that point in time, uh, they surrendered they surrendered a couple of potentials for generational growth, and they're content with that. And the more they push the technology, the more it's going to be a comply or die situation. And that's why I say, I think, especially with the RNA technology and what they're in the I got to be careful how I say these things. The pandemics and the national emergencies, that this has now become a normal state for an engineered, two or three, possibly four generations. And they're cool with that, from what I've gathered and from who I've talked to. And there are the rare, I guess you want to consider them aware younger generation. And they're usually they had different circumstances growing up, or they had some type of laid back parent that had some type of free thinking left to them to teach their kids, but rare and few, man. And as I'm watching YouTube on a cerebral decline, I'm seeing the critical thinkers turn into idle chatters, and I'm watching that movement of, this is what's actually going on. Here's the proof of it. Here's some awareness. They're kind of deterring their train of thought away from that. And I'm wondering if that's generational, that's, technological. Is that, or is it just a state of conditioning that we've allowed ourselves to be conditioned to from generations, possibly four. I'm going to say more or less 2 to 3, but whatever that medium is when those towers fell. From that point on, oh, we lost Charles. Oh, he's in the back. Thank you, Charles. There we go. All right, brother.
Yeah, sorry about that. I hit the wrong button, man. Getting off the
Ah,
bus. I
shit, it
hit back.
happens.
Yeah. But now I'm not on the bus with all this fucking noise. It's so hard to talk on the bus with so much noise.
Right.
I'm going to the city because I want to check this church out that me and Max were looking at on Google Maps. I'm gonna go check it out. But yeah, I talk to a lot of younger generation too, and man, I'm just glad. I hated school. You know, I'm not telling any younger generation, to not go to school. But me personally, I seen the indoctrination. I think the '90s was like the beginning of it, almost. Like,
Right.
there's some intelligent people out there that would say, screw capitalism, and they're going with communism. And I'm like, huh, there's really no difference. I'm like, how do you do that? Like, how do you go from, even though, yeah, to me, there's really no difference, man. It's all, these labels are the illusions to make you think you're in a different, I don't know what to call it,
Well,
but like a different brain or something. It's all the same.
I know
Control.
that being a child from the 70s, to hear people in the States even mention communism as a possibility, a concept, or it just stupefies me because I
Oh,
grew up in a time where even that word alone was despised.
me too. If you would have brought that up in my days, people would have looked at you like, there's a lot of, the people in where I grew up here in Connecticut comes from communists. A lot of my ancestors, my great grandparents left that shit thinking they were going to come to, which they did. They came to a freer place, but all by design, man. They're slowly closing in, and they got it pretty much sewed up, man. Now they got people willingly just complying. It's the mind control to me. It's kind of amazing, but sad at the same time. It's like, how did they get to this point to where people just say fuck it? It's like they've been beat down mentally, stripped of everything, and they're just like playing along now. Like, it's not even worth me putting up a fight. They're just like, I'll just go along with it. It's much easier. But most people didn't even put up a fight, so I don't know where this mental beatdown comes from, where people just play along. That's why I say hypnosis. It's like they've been hypnotized to believe all this shit.
For the ones that come from our generation, Charles, I would say it's hypnosis or even frequency engineering. But what we did as a society here in the States was deliver our most precious resource, which is our children, to the state to be educated. And the state almost makes that mandatory unless you can get the ability to, homeschool your children. But then they're ostracized in their own little secular idealism and world. But for the mass, the children were handed right over to the state. And while you went and did your 9 to 5 or whatever it was that you were doing, the state was taking a fresh slate, a clean mind, and programming it.
That was well said, man. Our most precious, commodity or whatever, resource. You said the children, man. Most people would have said water or food, but it's the mind, man. That's the most powerful weapon. Our greatest weapon is the individual's mind, not a gun, not a bomb. The mind is the most weapon, man.
I truly believe that, and they have to know that, or otherwise they wouldn't have started and implemented a government system of programming control from K1, kindergarten, all the way to, your graduation. And then even after that, the colleges have now become institutions of indoctrination, or at least from what I've seen. And they have the submissive and the willing that are going into these colleges with that mindset. They didn't experience the freedom. They're not taught the same criteria, and they're not exposed to the same ethics and ideals of nation that we were exposed to. So that, they're going into these colleges completely devoid and almost the ideal of everything that we were back 60s, 70s, even before that to the 50s when the nuclear family was developed. I mean, even that has a mainstay for being a progressive society. But what I'm seeing now and what they're calling progressive is self defeating and submissive and definitely highly engineered. And whatever these colleges are putting out is what we're going to get back. And that's what bothers me. They can put their foot immediately at this point in time in reality on your neck, but the future generation is not going to be there to remove that foot. They're going to be there to help put added weight on it. You realize that, don't you?
Oh yeah, and that's why I've been trying to open people's eyes, but it's come to a point where I realized it's up to themselves, man. It always leads to arguments and shit. I don't know. Sometimes I don't understand how people don't see it, period. I just,
Well,
because they, like you were saying, I think it's because they didn't grow up in the type of environment we did. There wasn't
one
cameras
thing,
everywhere and all that good stuff,
one thing I noticed, Charles, is on your platform you have such a diverse perspective of people. You have the lame ass to the intellectual, and I'm met with opposition every time I go to your channel. I'm met with opposition, but I usually try to go there with a message, or at least something to offer, and you can see even from that. So I can imagine what you're experiencing, trying to juggle that or try to relay some type of critical thought across whenever there's such a chaotic error in between just the chat room and the panel. I'm watching even the panels. If it isn't combat, personal issues, then you get into me, I, and projection. And very rarely do you hear of this is what you're actually dealing with. This is the reality of the situation. Can we not agree that the future is not in our benefit and the children are not there to carry on a tradition that we're carrying on? And they will definitely reinforce and apply weight to the authority upon you just because we're fucking outdated, man.
I see that, man. Like the police, I'll use them for an example, man. They could be illegally beating someone down, and you'll see people come out of nowhere and help them. They're helping them commit a crime, and yet people just blindly do it. You just go along with shit.
Right.
It's a wild fucking. Back in the days, that would have never flown, man. People weren't with that shit. I just don't know what happened, man. It was like a complete switch. Within 20 years, a complete switch from
And
people, being I don't even know what to call it, man. I don't even want to label it. Free, whatever people want to call it, too. Just, it's like a cult, the most negative cult I've ever seen. These government people are in the worst.
Well, see, you can't just blame the government. I mean, anyone who sent their kid to a public school during
Right.
the engineering years, and we'll say that's from when the buildings came down to this point,
You're right.
has contributed. You know,
I was 21.
Was
The building
you were
came
21 when that happened?
right around my mom passed away, right around that same. A lot of things were going on in my life at that time. Yep, that was a fucking crazy time. When them buildings are coming down, as I'm watching them fall, I said, we're fucked. I felt the energy right then and there. I knew it. I knew something was going on inside. It was an inside job. Nobody would have the balls to fly a plane. Like, I
Well,
just knew something was.
logistically, it would have been because of restricted airspace and departure. Even protocol would absolutely have detoured any of that situation, to my notion, unless we are that vulnerable and at that time we're that exposed. Which, if that's the point, if that's the case, then shit,
They
anybody could
used
have taken advantage.
Yeah, they used that as a how could I put it? They used that as their advantage, man. Probably, because they seen a free country was like a easy way to take it over from the inside out, man. They used the very laws that were supposed to protect us to fuck us, man. That's how I see it.
Right, but
But
you got to consider what I'm saying, man. These last few generations don't see that,
mm,
and that's the future that you and I are trying to fight for a future that the last few generations aren't even aware of. They don't even comprehend our struggle or fight as to why, because they never experienced it, man.
yeah, they tell me to shut up and deal with it. I'm like, what? Well, listen here, man. Your mom didn't teach you enough. That's what you need a slap. A lot of these young kids are never put in their place. Because, like you said, their parents didn't raise them, the school did. When people say, I
Right.
raised my kids, you're at work most of the time.
And that's another thing is disciplinary action became something that became a criminal charge during the course of this change. And if you raised your hand to your kid, like I used to get the good old ass smacking, well, fuck, these days, and even a couple generations back, you raised your hand to your kid, CPS was involved, and you're liable to lose your kids. You're liable to go to jail. So even that disciplinary state at home was engineered and manipulated. So, at what point at the start of all this, when people should have been instilling um, good values and ethics into a generation that was going to future serve the previous generation, it wasn't there. They were absent in their duties, and their duty should have been to educate the children for the next generation and the generation prior. But they were lax and absentee. So as much as you can blame, any engineering from social engineering, you can also blame yourself for subjecting your kids to it, um, for consenting to it, for complying to it, and now that's your future. And your future, which is the last few generations, could give a shit less about your ideals, your thoughts, or your beliefs. Welcome to the technocracy, the Internet of Things, and it will be
You know,
ushered in with love.
the craziest shit just happened to me, Access. I went in the store and got me a coffee and a loose cigarette or a cigarette. And this guy came up to me and said, "You got extra cigarette?" I said, "Nah." He goes, "Can I have a couple puffs of your cigarette?" I'm like, "What the fuck? Hell no."
No, man.
I'm like, "Dude, what the fuck?" That's
Let
wild.
me ask,
People are going,
how old was he?
"You look in his 30s."
In his 30s.
Yeah.
Which means that he had about 20 plus years of schooling, and that's the best that he can muster up is, "Can I have a couple drags off your cigarette?" There's a part of your future.
That's another thing, man. Whew. When you look at it, I wasn't even thinking about, like, yeah, that's another thing that's dangerous. Actually, these minds are going to be in positions of, like, look at Kamala. That's one mind that's dangerous. A dumbfounded lady with the power. She always talks about the power of her pen and how it could ruin people's lives. She blatantly admits this shit.
Well, the things that she's talking about, if she becomes a president, that she could change. As vice president right now in her position, she could change. So I don't know what she's even talking about. You're talking about change when you are in a position right now to make those changes. What are you waiting for?
Well, she's speaking to. It's almost to the point, actors, where people can say anything and on TV, and people think because it's on TV, they just go with it. Oh, the government said it, so yeah. Even though they've been fucked over the last 15 years by the government, they still have hope. It's amazing to me, man.
Well,
It's like an
have you
addiction.
seen have you seen the mosquito agenda?
No, why? What's that?
There, Florida, Texas, and I think it's Maine. Maine is wanting to implement a 6 o'clock curfew on people because of the mosquitoes. They're carrying some nasty shit. Florida and Texas are also experiencing some diverse reactions from the mosquitoes. Now they're saying that this is a natural onslaught. But if you remember the development of mosquitoes and the bioengineering that took place when Bill Gates was releasing all these mosquitoes, billions of them, and
How
now,
about West? Remember that? Remember the Lyme disease? All that? That was in Connecticut.
right? And maybe Connecticut. You know, I try to observe, and if they start talking, well, mosquitoes are the delivery system, then I know to avoid mosquitoes. And I don't give a fuck which ones it is. It's all of them. You know, or take some type of precaution. You know, they used to sell this really neat little device you could attach to your belt. I don't know if you can still get them, but it gave off a frequency, a little hum. And man, that son of a bitch kept the mosquitoes and the bugs away from you. And I'd always take that in the woods with me, man. And I don't even know if you can get those anymore, or if those are even available. But it was better than spraying yourself with all the chemicals and all the bullshit, and it seemed to work better. But they may even have, you know, discarded that technology, and I may just, you know, be a remnant of something that was, but they may have engineered them to even surpass that. I don't know how far they've went, and now that they have time release, which is, you know, technologies that they're putting into viruses and delivery systems such as mosquitoes, with the RNA and the oh, I can't think of the word. It eluded me earlier today when I was discussing this. Um, Fuck, I ain't even gonna try and remember it because if I do, I'm just gonna drive myself nuts. But anyhow, it's almost like time release with the RNA that it can hold itself and stay dormant for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So you never know what you've already been hit with until maybe 2 or 3 years down the line. Gain of function. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you very much. And I don't know how much you've looked into that and the mosquito situation we got going on now, but apparently Fauci has has one of the mosquito diseases, or just he was recently hospitalized for one of the mosquito diseases. Now, whether that's a part of engineering an agenda and moving it forward, or whether we just kind of got a bit of observational karma in action, and he was in the lab and got bit by one of his own creations. I don't know. I can't say, but I do know that it was it was one of the viruses that the mosquitoes carry. I would say it's more for the advancement of their agenda, since they're wanting to lock and mandatorily put people at 6 o'clock was the curfew. So apparently mosquitoes are violently active from 6 o'clock till whenever they lift that particular curfew. And I don't know if they've they've I know that they've asked people to do it, but I don't know if they've mandated it yet. I figure give them a few deaths, scare the people a little bit, and it's back to that whole 2020 thing again. You still with us, Charles?
Yeah, I'm here. Just walking on the street. All right, man. I'm just talking.
So I didn't know if you'd been up on the mosquito technology or not.
Yeah, I've seen the nano and all that stuff, but I wonder if that's like a new angle they're going to take to implement more law. Like some of the shit is, if you really think about it, is it truly possible? Just like they say, hold on, I want to scream over that truck. I read about tests where people tried it in New York. They had a little vial and they broke it, and they tried to make this alleged, outbreak, and it won't work because oxygen kills shit on point. It can't spread through the air.
Right.
And people don't realize it. They believe these movies and all this propaganda, man. And when you look at the basics, it all makes sense. It's like it's impossible for them to make these things that can annihilate cities, right? With this biological, it's all nonsense. They got people. They got into and they got people.
Bill Gates did say that the mosquitoes were a great delivery system. And as we learned with like HIV, that HIV can only survive in oxygen for a very short time. We're talking.
So that's a good point. Actually, this is a good point. Delivery system that could work, like a flying needle or something, right?
Basically, yeah. Yeah, and that's the way I'm seeing it. Is if people won't take the vaccines and they're not compliant, then we'll just deliver it to them in a different way, under the guise of we're helping you. We're trying to stop all these mosquito spread viruses by modifying these mosquitoes, but you know how lax all that shit is, and now you don't know whether that next mosquito bite is going to deliver a disease or just a welt, a bump, and an itch. You don't know.
Right. So, you know, a lot of people tell me, "Oh, Chuck, man, you know, you gotta just walk away." I get it, man, and I'm not implementing nothing, no violence or nothing either. But I tell people, okay, I get it, and I'm with it, man. You know, I don't want to have to take that route either. But what if it came to it? It might come to it, right? It might get that critical to the point where you have to protect yourself. Then what do you do? You just walk away and run away? You can't run.
Well,
Right.
let me tell you, if it comes down to that type of critical situation, just be prepared for it. You know, always be mindful, alert, and prepared. And that's the best that you can do. Because
Right.
one man against the army is a fool's battle.
Oh,
But
yeah.
one man surviving, the odds are more in your favor. But just
People tell me, why don't I do something about it? Look, do I look like an idiot? Or fucking...
right, nobody
I-
wants to be the Tiananmen Square guy.
Yeah, you can't defeat a fucking 20-man fucking team by yourself. You could. You got the right equipment, but I just don't see it, man. Not
Well,
not
that's
the
why I
equipment
say, you know, be tactful, be mindful, and be prepared. You know, have what you need to survive in a situation like that. And that's kinetic and other. And be prepared to leave the zones of hostility. Be at least trained, educated, and prepared enough that if you had to leave occupied zones or residential or suburban areas or even cities, which would probably be the first, you know, educate yourself a little. It doesn't mean full on, all out balls through the wall. It's probably best done in private. It's probably best done in just your own time and without too much attention brought to it, if any at all.
this is the city, man. There's too many people here for me. Sometimes it's uncomfortable being in the city.
Yeah, I understand that, man. I don't go out much.
You know, like having to quickly grab and go. People don't think it'll ever come to that, but hey, they could think that if they want. They'll be the first ones etched out. They'll
Yeah,
be the first ones on Mr. FEMA camp.
And
You know,
as long as you're self prepared and you're self, you know, aware, then it's probably best not to share that type of information. It'd be like the guy going out flexing his muscle in front of a firing squad. You know, so what?
right?
You know, that's suicide. You know, be covert, be silent. You know, be tactful in your way, so that no one knows what you're thinking. No one knows what you're actually your intent and what you're developing. The skill set, the awareness of how to survive situations or evade situations. You know, it's none of nobody else's business.
That's in the book, in the Art of War, man. Most war is psychological. Actually, all war is psychological. You know?
And as long as you can eat and drink and you got a fairly safe place to shelter yourself, well, those are the fundamentals right there. It may not be living the way that you're used to it. It may not even be a standard of living that any of us would want to ever even endeavor as an adventure. But if you're that determined to survive and you're that pissed off, then do something for yourself.
Right.
Because if you expect somebody else to do it or these last few generations, it's not going to happen. And they're not going to be there. They'll be there to point you out, these last few generations. They'll be there to snitch on you, but they're not going to be there to help you.
That's very true, man. I can't stand people who do that shit, man. Who just don't mind their business and are always looking for someone to tell on or getting someone's business. I hate that shit. As long as you
Well, you
ain't
got-
like killing people or beating people for no reason, mind your fucking business, man. You know,
Well,
other
that's
than
just
that, I'm
it.
not.
We gave our
You know.
kids over to be indoctrinated and programmed. If you see something, say something.
Yep,
So you,
they have that
if
on.
you, yeah, and if you're trying to prepare yourself for an inevitable or an eventual, well, they're the first ones that's going to fucking say, hey, Mr. Stevens over here is acting kind of strange. And, every other weekend we see him take off with all this survival garb. We're concerned. Be a little more tactful and covert about what you do, and especially on social media, man. Don't reveal your hand to the enemy. Don't feed the algorithm.
And sometimes I get my feelings here and there. I say shit that I shouldn't say. Even though I'm just mad at the time, I reflect on what I said, and I'm like, damn, I shouldn't have. Even though I'm just mad, I shouldn't have said that. Because these people love to manipulate what you say and twist it into their own. That's how the system works. So they'll take what you say, twist it, and manipulate it, get people to believe. Take what you said out of context. Just to incriminate you.
Everything that comes out of your mouth will be used against you.
Even in the universe.
That. Everything that comes out of your mouth will be used against you. So prepare to suffer the consequences. And then
even when
take
you tell
responsibility.
Like when you accept something, I feel like a bait and steal. When you say yeah or accept something, it's like you must do it now. You accepted it and you said yeah, so now I feel. Many times I've accepted stuff, thought about it, and I had to do what I said I was going to do. There's no turning back, and that's how I look at everything now. When you accept something and you say you're going to do it, you best fucking do it. Your date is sealed right there.
Well, I like to take a pivotal approach to daily survival because I never know what I'm going to be confronted with or what mode I'm going to have to switch into to get by that situation or that moment with least resistance. So I don't solidify anything, but I do look at the facts. And that's what people are, that we'll call them the complainers or the bitchers or the ones that just gave in, gave up, or, those are the ones that are most likely not to be your ally in a time of when you're going to need that resource. So the least you say and the more covert you are, because that's the way that they operate. And why not use the master's tools to disassemble the master's house? If he doesn't know what you have, what you got, what you're capable of, because you haven't voiced it, you haven't solidified it. For all they know, you're capable of nothing at all and everything all at once.
That's what I used to love doing when I was younger, and these bullies would fuck with me. And I would just be quiet and be like, all right, you're tough when you're around all your boys. When you're by yourself, see how tough you are. I would just never say nothing back. They would, think I'm some chump, and I'd say, all right, that's cool. You're tough now. And sure enough, when they're by themselves, they're nothing like what they are when they're in front of the people. But being, and it's not just that situation. It doesn't always have to be a violent situation. It could be anything in life. Just
Hell, it could be
You know?
bills, you know, or a dispute on the sidewalk. It could be anything, man, at any point in time, anywhere.
Don't show your cards.
Just make sure that the advantage is with you by not revealing the advantage you have.
Hmm. Like, you know, what do you think's with these channels, right, that go around and record police? Like, sometimes I think some of them are put in place as an agenda so they can implement more laws against us holding them accountable. I think some of this shit was started by them. They love playing chess, they'll pay people, and some people blindly do for money, and they don't think about what they're doing. So they'll have people do things just for a benefit of them. That's like a pawn move. We'll send these people out here and tell them it's for this, but like you said, they don't show what the true move is going to be. You know, the true objective is to implement more laws. So by them going to record and talk shit to the police, saying we have freedom of speech, being aggressive, now they're going to implement more laws in place to say my life's in danger. Like,
Right.
I see through all this, man. If this
And
keeps going on,
just because you do, Charles, doesn't mean that you have to let everybody else know that you do.
true.
Because all you're doing is painting a target on your back. You can speak and you can teach and you can educate and make people aware without painting a target on your own back. And those
true.
that were meant to hear and those that are smart enough and have critical thinking, they'll catch what you're saying. They'll deduct what message you're coming across with. And those that don't, well, they were cattle in the first place. They're probably the ones that, you know, not only did they send their kids to school, but as soon as they got home, sent them to go watch TV, cartoons, or play on their computers, or gave them a cell phone for the rest of the night just so that they would be out of their hair. You know? And those kind of people were not taking any actions or steps to prepare a better future. They were just babysitting the inevitable, their own destruction.
I just looked at. I'm gonna have to jump off in like 5 minutes. Damn, my phone died quick. That
That's all right,
20%.
Charles. You're going to go
Right.
live, right?
Yeah. When I get home in about an hour.
Okay. Well, because I'll go ahead and about 7 o'clock shut this down, and that way it gives people time to get themselves together and mosey on over to your channel. And you know,
What do you got?
like I said, man, you're a placeholder, Charles. You know, you're one of the few, and whether you know it or not, you have a personal obligation. It's just your approach, and once you get a hold on that, you're going to be a formidable voice. Just stay consistent, man.
Thank you. I'm trying.
I know that, brother. I know. I'm watching. I keep my eye on you.
Sometimes to be a voice, I don't want to say too much because then people will see things like a weakness, but sometimes it's difficult, man. If you can't shake some stuff off and keep pushing forward, it'll break something down. Because it's disappointing, man, to just see everything. Like, it's not, I don't want to say break me down, but it's just disappointing at the end of the day to see everything go to shit.
That's why I said, Charles.
Everything has potential, but it's going.
Observe your own disposition, because in reality, you know that the majority is not going to do anything but utilize everything you say, do, or think against you from the last 2 to 3 generations. And the older generation that can't take care of themselves will see you and look for a weakness or a vulnerability for their advancement. So the less you say and the less you reveal.
I was just thinking that, actually. You took that right out of my mind, man. I was just thinking how channels do that. They watch people and they do that exact move. They'll take people what they say and then, twist it. The younger generation's bugged out, man. They've been, the school system did a fucking number on them.
Right? But
And
you gotta, the people did it to themselves, as well. They gotta take some responsibility for what they've done. They can't just sit and point fingers and bitch. If you sent your kid compliantly into the government's arms, then expect your future not to be as equitable as you would like.
But we can't, you're right. We can't always, because look at me and my shoes. My mom when I was getting arrested and getting in trouble, my mom didn't know what to do with me. She thought the state would help me. I've been through the ringer. I didn't turn out like these other, I stayed strong. You know what I mean? I stayed strong and seen through it. So it's all up to the individual, I guess, at the end of the day.
It is.
Like I said,
and if somebody is depending on you to stand in front of the firing squad, it's only because they're afraid to.
Right. Like a gang. That's so funny you say that. People will send you to do something because they can't handle it themselves. Oh, that's the government, right? They send people to fight their battles.
Right.
They're fucking weak. They can do it themselves. Yeah. It's crazy. But I appreciate you having me up.
Oh,
Good,
absolutely, man. Absolutely. Anytime, Charles, you're welcomed here. I do stop in. I do check out your channel. I check in on you quite frequently, but there's such a resistance and a hostility towards my message. That's why I don't panel up anymore. And especially if I see somebody up there that is going to potentially pose a problem, I just won't panel up because I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah, I think that's my problem sometimes. I have too much hope in people that they could turn around, but it's not my responsibility. It's up to them. But
no,
if people don't want to know you, take time to talk to you. People are so judgmental. They don't even see it. They're so blind. They judge people off of one thing that was said. They don't talk to them. They don't get to know the individual. It's like judging a book by its cover.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's their law.
And it is. And that's too bad for them, man. But it's not my loss because it doesn't change what I'm doing. It doesn't change who I am. Their opinion means shit to me.
Peace to everyone in the chat. All this noise around me now. It seems like whenever I try to talk, loud cars come by, trucks.
It's inevitable, man. But anyhow, Charles, it's been a pleasure having you up here. It's been a pleasure having you as a guest. I've been off for a while. I'm thinking about coming back a bit, and I'm glad you were here to set this off with the right tone. And man, have a great stream today, and thank you for being a guest.
Thank you, man. Have a great day. Stay positive, everybody. Don't give up, man. And I'm out.
Right. All right. All right. Many props to Charles and his channel. I think everybody here knows where Charles's channel is, and that's Charles Was. I'll try and get that in the chat before I go. I want to thank everybody who tuned in, and I was just testing the waters and seeing who's aware and who's asleep, who's been naughty and who's been nice, and maybe I'll start going live again, or at least contributing my part to the struggle. I've been doing some personal life endeavors that have been very beneficial to me, and I don't want to let go of that at the moment. But I don't want to neglect obligation either. The share. And this is Charles's channel. And I'm sure you will enjoy his channel, for those of you in the future and those of you now. And I want to thank definitely Tools and Tools, Tab Rose, Naturally Charles, and any lurkers. And, you know, I've got a motto now, whistle while you lurk. And with that, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. And my best hopes for everyone out there to have the best that they can with what's available to them. Thank you very much. Access out.